Welcome back to another episode of the Packs What She Said podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Maggie, Loney, joined as always by Perri, Goldstein, and once again, here to recap a Packers loss. Packers fall week 8 to the Vikings at Lambeau Field, 24-10. Perri, it was a trick of a game, I guess, terrible, but the treat that came out of this weekend was a Rashan Gary mention. So let's start the show by talking about that, because that's the good news.
Yeah, that was I think the Packers knew that this team needed something positive because man alive. Yeah, this is a good thing. Rashan Gary, I mean, I don't think it really needs to be said, but we can say it. Like, he's more than deserving of this extension. He's one of the best edge rushers in the league, even with coming back from a torn ACL. I think his stats don't lie. The eye test doesn't lie with the way he plays on the field. But I think more than anything for me, it's just like, it's the work ethic. It's the leadership he brings to this team. It's the energy. It's just who he is as a human being. He's the guy that you build that side of the ball around. You build a defense around Rashan Gary. And this team right now, especially, I think when you're looking at like, who are your pieces that you're building around? Who is the future of this franchise? To lock up the guy that you know, like, unequivocally is one of those pieces is really huge. And I actually think from a contract perspective, it's a really nice number. It's not too high. It's perfectly respectful for where he is in his career. It's going to keep him in all of his prime years. It's just like a really good deal all around. And I'm really stoked for him.
Yeah, so it ended up being a 4-year, $96 million extension in new money, ends up rounding out to like $107 million overall with a signing bonus of like a lot,
About
34 million.
35.
Yeah, so obviously the Packers snag one of their first rounders, keep him long-term from the 2019 draft. Obviously Savage also on IR now, so unsure what'll happen with him, but at least for the foreseeable future, we've got Rashan Gary in green and gold, which is about the best news you could have hoped for after, another down performance. But before we get into the game, since we're kind of already talking about it a little bit, trade deadline, of course, is on Halloween tomorrow. If you're listening to this, the trade deadline may have already passed, but since it's Monday night as we record this, do you have any thoughts about players? Do you want the Packers to be buyers? Do you want them to be sellers? Do you think there's any movement at all? Or do you think it's just another year of a lot of rumors and the Packers doing absolutely nothing?
I think it's the latter. If I really had to guess. I don't know, man. I think what they do at the deadline says a lot about where they think this team is. I personally actually don't want them to do anything. I think doing anything right now is a really rash decision. And I just don't think that, like, we've really seen enough from this team to make any decisions. And it's not like the Packers have a lot of like wiggle room. I think if you go out and you spend the money that you do have to get a player, it's not like this team is in contention for anything. So you're not going to be buyers. If you're going to go out and sell and you're tanking on this season, then I think you're doing this team a disservice because you're not even giving them a chance to like take the back half of the season and see what this young team can do with it, like start to put some things together. Then you're just saying, we've decided we've given up on you. We don't really believe in you anymore. And I don't like that attitude either. So I'm actually cool if they do nothing. I know that that's boring. And I know it's not very fun and exciting, but I feel like that's just the rational approach. This was always going to be evaluative, and this was always going to be kind of we're going to be 500 type of year. Now I know that they're well below 500 right now, but it's just kind of like the way the cookie has crumbled. I don't know. How do you feel?
I mean, I go back and forth about it because I see like a veteran running back or wide receiver or tight end like coming in and moving the needle. I know the Packers have been like, they're always in rumors, right? Like right now it's that they're invested or looking for a potential running back to add. But unless they're trying to, sign someone that they could lock up for like 3 years with the uncertainty of the room next year, it just doesn't make sense to me. You have Emmanuel Wilson on the roster who you haven't even given snaps to. You have James Robinson. Like, if they want to look for young, cheap guys, I just don't see, trading away the assets that you're looking to have in the draft. Now, if there's like a veteran offensive lineman that's maybe available, I could potentially see the Packers considering that, because I think the left tackle experiment is not what we want to see from this Packers team. And if you're truly trying to keep Jordan Love upright and evaluate his performance, it starts with the offensive line. So that would probably be the move I'd be like super comfortable making. I don't think anything happens on the offensive side of the ball. I think if like Goody gets an offer he can't refuse for someone on the defensive side of the ball, I wouldn't be shocked if there's like some movement, because I think right now he knows what he has on his offense, and his defense maybe gets an overhaul next year if there's a new coordinator in town too. But yeah, I think all this is just like hypothesizing about what ifs, and I don't think the Packers actually do anything substantial before the deadline.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly on the offensive line. Again, like, if it's going to aid in like the goals of this season, then sure, like, don't be rash. But again, like, there's very little wiggle room, I think, in terms of like what you can actually do at this deadline. I just don't think that like going out and being sellers and thinking about the future and draft capital is like, again, going to aid in the goal of the season, which is like ultimately like, what is Jordan Love? Because you handed him this like very young roster that is not helping him whatsoever, and draft picks for the future, and a worse defense, and like no Aaron Jones, and like no more offense, like any of his offensive linemen are also not going to assist him in understanding if he's the quarterback of the future. Like, every move that you are making right now, even at the trade deadline, should be, how are we answering that question?
Yeah. And I mean, like, I know Preston Smith is one of the buzz names because his contract would help the Packers to get it off their books, but he just came off like his best game of the season against Minnesota. So to move on from him, like, I guess maybe there's a mindset of like, you have Lucas Van Ness and you're giving him additional opportunities. But yeah, I think you're starting to get thin at certain positions. Like, we thought corner was going to be like this room of riches and depth going into the season. And then Jair has a back injury and Eric Stokes goes right back on IR with a hamstring. So like, I think what we're seeing here, especially on the offensive line, is that you think you have depth one game, and then by the end of another game, you don't. So we'll see what happens. Like we said, listeners, you might be listening to this after the deadline going, wow, they were way off base, or wow, not surprised, nothing happened just like we expected. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I guess now is the part of the show where we actually have to talk about the game that we watched yesterday.
Do we though?
Yeah, this is an 8-minute episode, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. I said this on Pack a Day, right? I feel like you can kind of just rehash any episode from the last 4 weeks. Just hit play, whether it's Pack a Day, Pack's What She Said, Reporting is Eligible, whatever podcasts you listen to in the Packer sphere, and you're going to hear the same stuff just regurgitated over and over again, because I don't know how many different ways we can say the same things.
Fine. You want to hear something that I officially feel like very steadfast in that's different?
Yes.
I actually don't think Jordan Love's the problem.
Oh, absolutely not.
I've been saying like it's all things. I just really don't. I think of maybe it could be him if everyone around him was playing well and like perfectly and he was playing poorly. But I think I officially feel after this game that man is doing everything he possibly can for this offense, and the pieces around him are letting him down. That's how I feel officially after this Vikings game. I mean, like, he got off a pass in the middle of a sack. He was slinging it down the field, trying to put together some kind of like come from behind drive, and his receivers and his running backs are just dropping passes. I mean, there's not much more that you can do. I actually got into an argument with my father because he was like, why is he throwing it into triple coverage? And I'm like, I'm sorry, but you're 6'5" receiver in Christian Watson. He should be making that catch in the end zone, respectfully. Like, that was there for him. It was in his hands. Like, it's not always going to be a perfect throw. Your receivers are going to have to make catches. That Jaden Reed interception, Not on Love. Your receiver makes that catch. If that was Aaron Rodgers throwing that ball, are you blaming that interception on Aaron Rodgers? Like, that's what I want people to be asking themselves. Are you looking at these throws and you blaming Jordan Love because you want to blame your first-year quarterback? Like, look at this in a vacuum. I'm not blaming that interception on Love. Jaden Reed had it in his hands and he allowed a defender to rip it out of his hands. Like, drops after drops, your offensive line just like crumbling in front of you. I don't know. Someone is going to have to make a play for this guy.
Yeah, I mean,
someone's gonna have to make a play for this guy.
And I mean, like, if your argument is that he should throw a better ball, that's not going to happen 100% of the time. Aaron Rodgers and his career ended at Lambeau Field on a pick. Like, it's not always going to be a perfect situation. And I see, the argument that we talked about it last week, right? Like, if Jordan Love has to have a perfect situation around him, then he's not the guy. It's not even close to like mediocre right now on offense. Like, it's not even like a 4 out of 10. Like, it's not even an average situation for a quarterback to be in right now. Your offensive line just is not blocking defensive linemen. The run's getting stuffed 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Jordan Love led the team in rushing yards with 34 yards on Sunday. They had 74 yards total on the ground. And yeah, I mean, like you said, the pick, all those things swing momentum so aggressively that, like, I mean, what could you do at that point? It was 24-3 before they even blinked. The pick is returned 43 yards. On the very next play, Addison blows past Jair for a touchdown. And it's like, okay, well, there it is. Pack it up. Like, it's just, This team is, and okay. Should they be scoring points in the first half? Yes. Obviously, this team is starting behind the 8 ball somehow every single week. And I don't know if they need a different script or if it's literally just bad execution of the things that Matt LaFleur is calling, but they just, yeah, it's really hard to look at that. Kyle said it really well on Pack-A-Day, and you and I talked about this too in the DMs earlier, but like, you can point to at least 5 or 6 things that are wrong with this team and even this offense before you look and say, yeah, Jordan Love is on that list.
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought up a point that I want to go back to, which is like, it's the NFL. It's not going to be perfect. This isn't college. Guys aren't going to be wide ass open 100% of the time.
You can't get one foot down. Like,
you are going to have to make contested catches in the NFL. Like, you are going to have defenders draped over you. Like, you are going to sometimes have to throw into double coverage and trust that your guy is going to go up and make that catch. And even sometimes, like, you're throwing at guys one-on-one and they're not making the catch. The Packers are 0 for 7 on contested catches versus the Vikings. They're 9 for 43 on the season. Christian Watson, who's your big body speedster, is 0 for 8. I mean, come on. The only one who can do it is Romeo Doubs. Like, you need to have someone else who can make a catch against coverage. Like, this is the NFL. I'm sorry. Like, I will gladly point to places where I think Jordan Love made a bad throw or made a bad read or shouldn't have taken the sack and held onto the ball too long. He does that sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes he waits a beat too fast. Like, there are moments where he does that. But I'm sorry. He had plenty. He gave these guys opportunities in this game, especially they were down 24-10, and there were 2 drives where they made it down into the red zone, 0 points, not because of Jordan Love. So and I'm getting really sick of the discourse, especially from fans on Twitter who are just like very quick to blame the QB. And I need everyone to take a step back really quick right now and ask themselves, why is it that you're so quick to blame the quarterback? I get it. It's easy to. He's the face of the franchise. He's the one that holds the ball. He's the most important player on offense. But I don't know how you watch this Vikings game and come away thinking that Jordan Love was the reason why they lost this game. Because I'm pointing to drops, and I'm pointing to poor run blocking, and I'm pointing to some play calling. I'm still pointing to some play calling. Some of it is real sus to me.
Yeah, I mean, I said this on Pack-A-Day last night to Kyle and Andrew, but I think the identity of the Packers offense is that everything is harder than it needs to be. Like, the easy things are hard and the hard things are impossible. And you're never, ever going to win a football game if you can't even do the easy things right. They're like the most penalized team in the NFL. They can't get out of their own way. Every time there's like a promising drive, there's a false start, there's an ineligible man downfield. The Love to Dobbs connection on the opening drive that did not stand because of the Rasheed Walker penalty was a thing of beauty. It was gorgeous. That was everything you wanted out of your quarterback, everything you wanted out of your wide receiver. Those are the kinds of plays that you build on. And then a shitty penalty brings it back. And you're just like, okay, well, that was it. That was the momentum that we lost for like the entire quarter.
It's so brutal to watch. They literally beat themselves. They do not allow themselves to have nice things. And the Packers even switched out Rasheed for Yash, which I was like, okay, cool. A change. And then Yash gets hurt. It's just like they can't get out of their own way. And again, like penalties are tough because it's execution. It's poor execution, but it goes back to just like not being well prepared and well coached. And like, it's hard to point blame in places, but I just think it's like, why are your guys not prepared?
And I mean, I understand like there's a stubbornness to coaching. And I think sometimes you have to be stubborn to be successful because there are certain things that, you know, your coaching staff is not going to give up on and whatever. But if you know the season's over, right? Like the Packers aren't going into the locker room every day going like we're playoffs. Like we're not talking about playoffs. Like we understand that at this point, even if you had those expectations at the beginning of the season. And I'm also not saying Matt LaFleur is going up to the whiteboard and going like it is tank season. But if you have to be willing to at least now try to figure things out. You have a 3rd round pick in Sean Ryan. What was the point of that draft pick? Like, why are you not figuring things out around your offensive line? Like, you can't tell me that every single time they watch tape, they're like, yes, these are the perfect 5. This is the perfect alignment of our perfect 5. Like, how bad are the guys behind them if that's what you're trotting out every single week? And if they are that bad, then the fingers start getting pointed at guys like Brian Gutekunst, I think.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. There's so much to unpack here. There's so much to unpack. I think the conversation about Brian Gutekunst is for the offseason.
Oh yeah,
because I do think you make a good point where it's like, okay, we have seen now, like this is the roster that we've been given, and it's like now we need to make some decisions about who stepped up this year and who didn't.
And it is a roster that's drafted and developed. Like
right. You this is your philosophy. Did it work? Did it not? Who worked? Who didn't? And in a season where pretty much it was open table season for anyone, whether you were drafted, whether you not, where you were drafted, didn't matter. Like you said, it's not the best 5 out there, but if you're not getting playtime, there's serious questions here. And so if you aren't getting playtime this year, do you even deserve a roster spot? But these are off-season questions, right? Of like, again, the E word evaluation. Like there's going to be I hope some serious changes, but that's my other thing about this team is like, are they super averse to serious changes? Because if they don't make them, are they just going to be stuck in this like weird purgatory? To go back to the game,
which we should do at some point.
To go back to the game. My point stands in that it just wasn't love. And that's not to say, again, that he was perfect. Obviously, he wasn't perfect. But it's really hard to be perfect when your guys are continuing to make mistakes around you. Like you said, penalties that back you up. And again, like it's a snowball effect. Like take the Rasheed Walker thing, right? Love and Dobbs come up with an amazing, what should be chain moving throw and catch. You get backed up. Then it completely changes the call that Matt LaFleur is able like to throw in. Your momentum is off. Your guys are off. Your timing's off. You can't get into a rhythm and you punt. Then you flip it. Your defense, I'm trying to remember if they ended up letting the Vikings go down the field, right? And then they missed the field goal, or had that already happened? That's what happened. Yeah. So, okay, you got to stop, kind of. But it's just like everything gets thrown. And this team is so, I don't know, I just feel like every little bump, every little bruise is not like, oh, it's just a little speed bump. It's like a huge hump. It's like a mountain it's like a mountain grows out of a molehill. And they have to like, they take whole quarters just to like come down. They had more penalties than they did first downs in the whole half.
Yeah.
You know, these are things that like young teams can't come back from. You know, you look at like old Packers teams with Aaron Rodgers led, like this didn't happen. And if it did happen, you snap back from this because you have a Cobb or a Brian Bulaga, right? Or a Corey Linsley, or guys who just like didn't let this stuff happen. Or you had an Aaron Rodgers who's throwing daggers at you and you're not getting the ball.
That's the problem, is Jordan Love isn't mean enough, honestly. That's what we've unearthed.
Is that the
today.
problem? No, I mean, no, I'm not advocating for that actually. But,
No,
but like the point stands is like these things weren't tolerated. And I think there does need to be a little bit of that level of like, this doesn't fly here. And I think the only person in this locker room who has having that mentality right now is Rasul Douglas, because he's like, no, we're not doing this young team thing anymore. We're not letting this stuff fly. Like, we have all played organized football before. Like, these guys need to get their shit together. And I think it's important. It's really important because like they also need to, you can't let yourself go out there and be like, oh, I'm just the young guy. Oh, I can make mistakes. No. That's why I'm supremely disappointed in Christian Watson so far this season. I don't know how you feel, but I'm disappointed. Like, we saw what he could do last year, and it's not like Jordan Love isn't getting him the ball. So, like, what gives?
Yeah, I'm disappointed in all of them. And like, I know we'll probably talk about it a little bit later with the game balls thing, but on Pack-A-Day yesterday, my game ball went to AJ Dillon because I felt like he was the only person that was consistently generating a spark. And I'm not saying it was on the ground, but he led the team in receptions. You know, he moved the chains a couple times. And before we get into that, we can have that conversation later. 1 first down on a rushing play the entire game. 1 first down was a run play. I don't know how that happens. And it's malpractice what's going on with Aaron Jones. Like, if he's on that limited of a snap count, then I think he should have gone on IR. You know, like this will they, won't they? Like, can he play? Can't he play? Like, if he's hurt, then let him rest, because if you can't utilize him effectively and he's just going to go out there for like 10 snaps a game and like risk tweaking something and like re-aggravating it, then that's not fair to anybody. And if Aaron Jones can't be a spark for your run game and get things going, then there's something really wrong. And I think we talked about the really wrong thing is the offensive line here, but like, it just third down efficiency, 5 of 14, 35% on third downs. Meanwhile, Kirk Cousins had like a almost perfect passer rating against the Niners on third down. Like, everything that we knew the Packers had to plan for, it's like you gave them the test sheet, right? And you had all the answers filled in, and you're like, you just gotta like change a couple things and then walk it
before we switch to the defense, because I'm gonna go scorched earth on this defense really fast. I want to talk about the Packers offense in the red zone.
Okay. Take it away.
Because I watch, like we've mentioned, right? They've gotten down. They were one of the best teams in the red zone for the first like couple of weeks in the season, right? And all of a sudden they're getting down into the red zone and they're scoring no points. And I find the play calling down in the red zone really confusing. Not bad, just confusing. And I honestly, some of the play calling, and this is something that I think we've talked about on the show previously, but just as an example, you get down to the red zone and it's 1st and goal, and you call inside zone with AJ Dillon straight into the butt of your interior offensive lineman. Goes nowhere, 1 yard. Okay, basically a draw play. You basically give up a down. 2nd and goal, same yardage. And now all of a sudden your play call is completely different. And it wasn't until fourth down where it's do or die where you draw up something interesting, right? It's not a fade to the back of the end zone where you're making your guy do a contested catch, which your wide receivers have proven time and time again that they are bad at this season. I just gave you the stats. They're not good unless it's Romeo Doubs. So you finally draw up something interesting and look here, it's a touchdown. I don't like, it's the same thing we've talked about, right? Where it's, draw, inside zone run, 1 yard, 1 yard, 1 yard. All of a sudden it's third down. You don't get the third down. And then you do on fourth down, the really interesting little like tight end leak out to Luke Musgrave. And oh, look, you have a first down. And it's like, well, why didn't you do that on third down? Why didn't you do that on first and second down? If you know that it works, why are you doing these in do or die situations, Maddie? These are my questions for LaFleur. And so if there are beat reporters out there listening, like if you want to ask him about situational play calls, like these are my questions, because I know he has them. And there are things that are working. Like I'm not sitting here and saying like they're punting on every single drive. Like they're not. We're watching these games. There are things on offense that are working, but it's just like situationally what's working and what's being called doesn't seem to be matching up. And that's where my questions are, is that like, when is it going to click?
I mean, like, I think there's part of it too, where if you're not putting things on film for defenses, nobody's going to respect what you're doing. So if you march down the field and it's like 8 passing plays and all of a sudden you get to the 2-yard line and you're like, I'm going to run it right now. They're like, no, you're not. Like, they don't, like, nobody has to respect you if you've never tried to run the ball the entire drive. And then all of a sudden you get down by the goal line and you're like, we're going to run this 3 times and one of them has to work. Like that's no, So, I mean, that also I think is part of it, is like you said, like, where is, and it goes back to me. I mean, I think the question that I have on that's compounding on all of this, is it a trust thing? Because we saw I don't want to say they got taken away, but it felt like Jordan Love wasn't allowed to air it out the last couple weeks. And then we finally saw him start to do that again against the Vikings. So is there a disconnect? Like, I want to know what Matt LaFleur sees, where he places a lot of this blame. Is it, I can't call X play to Luke Musgrave at the goal line because he dropped the last 3? Like, he had the first down early in the game that went through his hands. Like, is that why Romeo Doubs got the touchdown? Because he's been the most reliable receiver. Like, I'm curious what is going into his decision-making when he's in those moments. Like, who's going to come through clutch?
But if you're saying, okay, we're only going to clutch, then like every play should be going Aaron Jones in that zone, and he doesn't have a single touchdown yet this season, I don't think. Or he has one, maybe.
The Bears one, yeah.
Yeah. So like, you can go through the logic. I just think that's my thing, is that we're doing this like logically, and I quite frankly haven't seen any logic that makes any sense.
Yeah.
These are my questions. Okay, we're already at 30 minutes, so let's go to the defense. What the fuck? I'm sorry. This is going to be tagged as not suitable for children on YouTube. What the fuck?
Girl, if I knew, I would have a job in the NFL somewhere.
Bro, if this season gives me one thing, it better be a defense that is not coordinated by Joe Barry next year. That's it. They are bottom of the league. You don't even need to see the stats. You can eye test it. They're obviously bottom of the league. I mean, what is happening? We said going into this game, we're like, the Vikings are going to have their entire play sheet like open. They're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to be able to pass the ball. They were able to do whatever they wanted against this defense. It was easy. Everything was easy.
Right, like you shut them down on first and second, and it's like 3rd and 15, and it's like, here's 16 yards. Just
How many 3rd and 8s did Kirk convert?
all of them.
Yeah.
That's what it felt
It was like perfect on 3rd down. I mean, come on, man. What are we doing? Like, actually, on defense, what are we doing? Because once again, they couldn't stop anything. And you can say, oh, they kind of stopped the run. They were okay stopping the run. I don't care. Like, I respectfully don't care that you were like okay against the run if once again you let the Vikings convert literally every single 3rd down.
Right. And the Vikings are perfectly okay with 62 rushing yards if they're getting 297 yards through the air. Like, everybody's going to take that trade. And okay, right. We knew, like, in a cosmic, the stars aligned way that the Vikings didn't have a rushing touchdown all season. And the second they came to Green Bay, they were going to score their first rushing touchdown. Like, there was no doubt that was going to happen on Sunday. And I've seen, like, we've talked about this philosophy, right, for Joe Barry, where it's like, keep it in front of you, let them dink and dunk their way down the field.
No, I'm
right.
over it.
Your defense do that. The Vikings had the ball for 13 more minutes than the Packers. And how are you setting a young offense up to be successful if the ball is not going into their hands? And yes, there were times where there were forced turnovers and the offense couldn't get anything going. So it's not all on the defense. But it absolutely is on it's 3rd and 11, and all of a sudden here's 14 yards. It's the chunk plays. It's just this long sustained drives. Yeah, of course your defense is going to get gassed. Of course, and the Vikings are absolutely going to take what you give them. If your whole play is, I'm not going to give up a 50-yard touchdown, but I'm going to give up 13 yards every single play, so they take more time off the clock. Every team is going to say, yeah, we'll take that trade. Like, we don't need the 70-yard bomb. Of course, we'll just dink and dunk for 11, 12, 13, 11.
Yeah. The Packers haven't had a turnover in how many games?
You mean like an interception?
Yeah. They're like averse to turnovers. They sacked Kirk 3 times. Okay.
They recovered that fumble.
Yeah. But, sure.
But no, I know what you mean. Like,
I don't know. I'm waiting for this defense to do something. I'm waiting for this defense to do something for this team. And they are just below average. Everything feels super easy for the other team. They don't play hard. They're allergic to pass breakups. Like, you watch the Vikings team against this Packers offense, and they are fighting hard for the ball. They rally to the football. I mean, you watched what's-his-face pluck the ball out of Jaden Reed's hands.
Yeah.
When was the last time you watched a Packers defender do something like that?
Yeah.
And this isn't to say that there aren't individual guys on the defensive side of the ball that I think are playing really hard and really fast. Rashan. Preston Smith had an awesome game. Kenny is always doing his best. Rasul has been all right. He's been up and down. TJ Slayton had a great game. Colby Wooden had a great game. Colby Wooden blocked a field goal. That's sick. Quay Walker is literally a one-man defense. If we had 11 Quay Walkers, this team would be great. I just like I'm going back to my chef. That this, to me, the chef has the ingredients and he is just a bad cook. There's too much salt and not enough garlic, and he's overdoing the tomatoes, and he doesn't know when to take the pan off the fryer. It's bad. It's just the person orchestrating is doing a poor job with what he's being given for the umpteenth time. I'm so sick of watching the same shit every single weekend. Every single weekend. Every single team that goes up against the Packers does the same shit against them. And it always works. Mm-hmm. Like, clear out not just Joe Barry. Clear out the whole staff. Get rid of Jerry Montgomery. Get rid of all of them. Bring in a whole new slate of people. I'm so over it. Bring in someone who's damn aggressive, who can look at this secondary and say, we're going to play aggressive because y'all are man corners. Like, what are we doing here? And again, like, we can talk about Jerry really quick because I'm really disappointed in my man. But like, it just goes back to the defensive coordinator. It always has. And again, like last season, they went on that great run, and we said it over and over again. Turnovers will be a Band-Aid for bad scheme forever.
Yeah.
And it kept Joe Barry his job because they looked good. And it looks good when you're taking the ball away. Of course it does. But it's fluky as hell because they're not taking the ball away and they look bad.
Yeah, and I mean we've always said like the asterisk here, of course, is that like Joe Barry is not missing tackles. Like Joe Barry's not on the field against Bijan Robinson, but what Joe Barry is doing is he's calling the personnel that is in those situations. Like he's calling two defensive linemen at the goal line. I think it was Larry McCarron, like on the radio broadcast, said like, I'm not really sure why the Packers are in nickel right now. Like, like when your own paid broadcasters are questioning the decisions that you're making. And I don't understand again why these changes don't happen. And I'm not advocating like for a midseason firing. I don't think the Packers do that, but like everything is like, we got to watch the film. We got to make adjustments. There are no adjustments. So is it because you're that set in your ways, or like your adjustments that you made are so minute that like we don't recognize them? Because there's just not, I mean, there is a solution. It's to keep playing like this and you keep losing football games, and then, you know, it is what it is, but there's just no outcome for this defense. And it becomes hard to evaluate some of your young guys. Like Rashan Gary got paid. You have a really expensive defense on paper. Are you going to keep all of those players? Like what is the purpose of having all these pieces if they're not being utilized effectively?
Yes.
You keep investing pick after pick in the first round on defensive pieces, and your defensive coordinator can't do anything with them. So what's the point of drafting them?
You're literally going to Whole Foods and you're paying like $150 for your groceries and then bringing it to some schmuck at a stand on the side of the road. Like, that's what you're doing. It is such a waste.
The defense is the lettuce that you bought at Whole Foods that's rotting in your fridge while you get DoorDash because you don't want to eat the lettuce.
Literally. Yeah. I do think I agree with you though. Like mid-season fire, I don't think does anything. Like if I thought that it did, I would say I just don't think it does anything. It doesn't do anything for that side of the ball. It's not positive for morale. It's not positive for the locker room. Like it's just, who would you bring in? You know, it's if you really, really want someone good, you're waiting until the end of the season anyway to see who gets fired. It's not.
It's too early to make a decision.
It's too early, but it's shitty to watch. It just sucks to watch. And I agree with you. It sucks to watch like a whole season's worth of just like good guys get like kind of their time wasted.
Yep. I mean, we talked about the defense was going to be, you know, kind of the stars of the show this season, right? Not to throw out the excuse, but younger offense, having to develop, needing time to develop chemistry. Defense is going to keep you in games. And for the most part, the defense has, yes, kept them in manageable situations. But for every opportunity that they give the offense, they're also letting an offense march down the field and score points on them. So, like, they're not dominant in the ways that they need to be dominant or effective in the ways that they need to be effective to truly be helping their young offense. Like a fumble recovery once a game doesn't do enough to change the trajectory or give your young offense support when you're letting, you know, you're like, hey, we're in a 3rd and long, like this is the moment, and then here's 15 yards and the drive keeps going. You know, like it's just, again, evaluation. How many times have we said it? Like, take a shot, guys listening. Every time you hear us say the word evaluation, like
literally,
you just can't evaluate an offense or a quarterback when he's not on the field getting opportunities.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, it's not just, you know, we keep talking about evaluation, and it's not even just an evaluation for the offense. Like, it's an evaluation year for LVN and Devontae Wyatt and Quay and like the safety group. And like, it's an evaluation for everyone. And once again, like, if you're not being put in a position to succeed, then you're not getting the proper opportunity. And that sucks. Like, that sucks for everyone. God, this team is a mess. I did not think it would be this bad.
No, I think we all kind of got bamboozled because we had on paper again, like the pieces are there on paper and it's just a jumbled mess. It's like somebody accidentally let the paper go through the shredder and now you're trying to like tape all the individual lines back together to make something readable again. And I like Matt LaFleur, whoever's got the tape, I don't think one person can tape this back together. And unfortunately, I also don't think that Matt LaFleur's coordinators are like, I think the tape is sticking to their hands and they just are not actually helping that much trying to put this back together.
They're like paper mache right now. They just like don't know what to
It's just
do.
wet and soggy. How many analogies can we use in this one episode? We've got wilted lettuce. We've got tape hands. I don't know. What else is there to say?
I don't know, but I think we're out of time.
I think so too. I think we'll see what happens. We'll obviously be back later this week with a Packers Rams recap, and then next Monday we'll probably be back. You know what? You probably don't even have to listen to that one. Just come back to this, hit play, grab a drink, make it fun, and we'll see what happens. But thank you, of course, as always, for listening to the show Misery Loves Company. We love having you here with us. You can find the podcast on Twitter at PWSS Podcast, of course, right here on YouTube at Pax What She Said. All other socials at Pax What She Said as well. You can find Perri on Twitter at Perri_Goldstein and me on Twitter at Maggie J. Loney. Of course, on YouTube, please subscribe. If you have not already, you'll get the episodes one day earlier. And then on every audio format, everywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. So thank you, as always, for listening to the show and joining us for these what have become weekly rants. hopefully they get to stop soon. But thanks for being here with us, and go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.